Welcome to the On Stage podcast, where we interview musicians and members of the entertainment community. Well, it's so fun to have Jacquie Cassella here. Jacquie Cassella is
Thank
not only the
you.
CEO and president at Elevate Stellar Reality, which is a Florida property management company, but she is also a former semi-professional opera singer with over a decade-long career. And I'm kind of wondering, why is former in there? Now,
Because I haven't. Go ahead.
before we start, Jacquie, like I give the question to every one of my guests, can you give us a little bit of a backstory of who Jacquie Cassella is
Okay.
and everything from when you grew up to when you were quickly emerging on the scene with stage performance, etc., to being a CEO of these two companies? Oh, I got to hear it.
Okay. So yes, it's a very long, interesting story. But I grew up in a rock and roll household. So basically, before birth, my dad was playing the guitar. For my mother's womb, right? Okay, and I was in there. So, of course, but so I came out very, being very influenced by music right away. So it was a very big part of our household. So he always had like some kind of like music corner or music room, and then it turned into a studio. I actually grew up with a recording studio in my house. And then so I started like recording when I was like 8. And then I also started piano lessons around that same time too. But by the time I was 12, my dad actually, he was always an aspiring musician. And that was his dream, was to kind of like, just live with his music and not have to work for anyone and stuff. So he started to teach guitar lessons, all type of string instruments like banjo, mandolin, things like that, from our house. And we wind up getting notified by the town that he can't do that, or that he can't sell strings to the students. And he's like, well, this is not a retail store. Like, I'm just have strings, like if they break, or books, like, it's nothing. So they made us get a storefront. So we had this little corner, like a triangle storefront, literally, um, in town where we were living. And they, and it was like $200 or $300 a month. I can't remember. So at 12 years old, we had a family retail music store. And then that same year, I actually started to train as an opera singer. So because I auditioned for something in school, and the teacher was like, "Oh my God, you have a phenomenal voice. You need to like train as an opera singer. Like you need to become an opera singer." I was like, okay, like I didn't even know what that really was at the time, because I knew classical music, but I didn't know that there was something called opera singing. So that's how the journey started. So for those 10 years, through college, I, learned business. That's where I gained 30 years of business experience. I read, retail, wholesale, business management, all that other stuff. By the time I was 16, I had my own contracting business, teaching piano and voice lessons to beginners. And, I was already well immersed into my, performing career, which, took off very quickly. And, auditioning, performing, all kinds of stuff, community events and things like that, competitions. So basically, like, as I was, studying and learning to be an opera singer and performing and doing all this stuff, and me and my dad would perform together, was also learning business. And like I said, I did that through college. So by the time I was 21, 22 years old, I'm making $40 an hour, giving lessons. It was like I was making full-time money working part-time. um and that's kind of like how that whole thing started, just in regards to being, learning music, performing, becoming, a very versed opera singer in 5 languages. I was able to, tour and live in another country. And I was actually asked to debut at La Scala at 21 years old. And I was studying with the Prima Donna there. So that was really, really interesting as well. So, I mean, I have a lot of things under my belt that make me very interesting. But the former part is because life happened. So, life happened after I graduated college. And, I had kind of like a heartbreaking experience, and which deterred my path. And then more or less, like, just sort of like kind of got out of music for a little while. Like I was just sort of, I still kind of did, I still taught lessons. I still did some other stuff as well, but auditions here and there, but I really wasn't actively performing. I actually wound up getting married to the wrong person. I lost
Mm.
children. Like I had a very like interesting life, so the first 20 some years, 21 years of my life was phenomenal. I had just, I had so much opportunity. Like I said, I lived in other countries, I toured, I visited other, I was visited other places inside the country, outside the country. So many experiences, won awards with Nats and all, all kinds of accreditations and stuff. And then to kind of have my own mistake like bite me in the butt and then deter like my whole path. I was even being like shopped as a shopped for a contemporary contract with like Columbia and stuff like that around that time too. And I think I was just, I never really had a normal life. I never had an average life. And, I'm not meant to be average. I'm not meant to be normal. Like I shouldn't have just, got married because that was just because I wanted to be loved, right? So I wanted to be loved and I wanted to, kind of have a sense of normalcy when I wasn't meant to do that. So then everything sort of like came crashing down. I actually had like a major car accident the day I got married. He lost his
Mm.
only son like 2 months later in a freak accident. Then we lost a few babies that year. So we lost like three children in 1 year. And it really kind of deterred, a lot. It deterred a lot of my path, it deterred a lot of I was exposed to things that I may have not I shouldn't have been exposed to, and really in that time period, so I lost like 10, 12 years of my life, being married to this person who just fell apart, and really in that time I kind of started to develop myself as more of a contemporary artist, like R&B soul, and just, really just dived into my songwriting, and just because I can play the piano, so I was, and I'm pretty well versed in the piano, like on an advanced level. So, like I'm intermediate advanced level. So I was just, I just sort of like just did that and I enjoyed, what I was doing, just being at home. But, and even to be honest, the last few years, I haven't even really wrote a lot because my piano was in storage. So I couldn't, so now I'm just sort of like getting back into some things, things like that. So, and how I, really got into business was just along the way. Like I said, like, starting with my dad's retail music store and then learning business alongside of him for those 10 years and then going to college. And I didn't get a business degree, I got a vocal performance degree. But then when I got married, I helped my ex-husband like launch his business. And then later on, I wind up getting my own insurance agency, and which was pretty remarkable because I wound up having a second life. So I had a second life and I was burned to ash when I tried to leave my ex-husband, my marriage. And
Mm.
basically what happened was is that he went mentally he wound up developing a mental illness because of the loss of his child, and it kind of like really ruined the whole situation relationship even more, right? So but I was there and I stayed and I was being supportive, right? And so but just one day, and I think the last 2 years, no, not I know the last 2 years I was trying to exit, I was trying to figure out a way for me to leave. I mean, I was the breadwinner anyway because he was on disability for mental health. So when at that point, I was trying to leave, trying to exit, I was like, God, just please give me a better job so I can like go and support myself and stuff. And I just had a really bad moment where the day I decided to leave, I became a domestic violence victim. So
Mm.
and um he was never physically abusive, so that's it was just really out of left field. So I really knew that it was from his illness, that triggered him to do that. So but so at that point I had a second life, and when I got had a second life, like my whole life was like torn apart, it was in shambles, like my credit was destroyed, my insurance, like everything you could think of was a hot mess. So you know after 6 months, just I mean, I went through a lot of trauma, right? So but after the first 6 months of of that moment, I was given an opportunity to go into the insurance field to become an insurance producer. He was, so somebody's, I interviewed and he was like, "Oh, you're going to be a great, producer, salesperson, whatever." I mean, I've been doing sales since I was 12, so I would think so, right? So,
Mhm.
but I didn't really know like how much potential I really had. So I got my license in property casualty insurance, and that's how I started in the insurance field. I actually have all of my lines of insurance and actually at one point, um, up to half of the country. So I had like 25 states and all lines of insurance, health, accident, life, retirement, auto, home, like everything you could think of. I had them all. So I'm kind of like the unicorn of insurance. So I learned along the way that, I was really, really good at what I
Mhm.
was doing, that like people were coming into my office and like wanting to shadow me to see, how did I have an over 30% closing ratio, how was I doing 100 dials a day, like, which I was really doing them in 3 hours, and nobody does them in 3 hours. So that's how I kind of got into a second career, so to speak. And then I learned a lot of things about the business, a lot of things I didn't like about the business, working for people, places and things that didn't align because, unfortunately there are people that are like snake, like shady snakes, in the business. So, I kind of and I really knew that, you know, somehow I needed to have my own agency. I didn't know how it was going to happen because it, it, like I was told, and it is really like in order to have your own agency, you need $50,000 liquid. And I'm like, I'm never going to
Mm.
have $50,000 liquid. I was like, that's just impossible. So, in about 20, so after many years, and I've, worked for every major carrier in the nation, both independent and, not independent, both like, not, like just, independent, not independent, excuse me. And then, so I actually wound up moving towards like being with a broker. And that's kind of where I kind of learned a little bit about how to kind of get my own agency. But at that point, I was making really good money. I was, well, I was supposed to be. And, I had a really good opportunity. I kind of built that agency. Like every agency I was at, I ran the show. I was like, I'm the one first in, the agent's never there. I'm doing his job. Like it was just kind of nuts. But
Mhm.
so eventually I wound up leaving the whole, whether I was working for, State Farm, Nationwide, Allstate, whatever, and then to an independent broker, I was given the opportunity to have my own agency with like an affiliate of Mass Mutual of Philadelphia. So I met some agents there that they were going to branch off and form their own property casualty agency. And they were like, well, we want you to join us. So, just come on. And I'm like, well, what do you mean just come on? They're like, I'm like, don't I need money? Like $50,000. They're like, no, they're like, we just want you. So just come. And I'm like, okay, great. So that's how I kind of was able to obtain my own business, my own insurance agency, was through that opportunity. So that was really awesome and a big blessing, to be honest. So that was right before the COVID. That was it was December 2019, and then I actually launched my agency in January 2020. And a few months later, we got into the COVID. So I was already working from home, but the COVID kind of like optimized the situation because everybody wind up working from home, and then all these new systems were in place, for us to do what we're doing now, right? To be live and stuff, and it was just really interesting. So, and I was, to be honest, we were lucky to survive. I was lucky to survive my agency through the COVID. Do you know what I mean? I didn't make much money. I mean, there was a lot of programs that I qualified for as a business owner that I took advantage of. But, at the end of the day, to make it out of that was pretty incredible. Do you know what I mean? Because you're a brand new agency, like you could have just went belly up, so that's it, like right away. So I was really blessed with that. And in that process, that's how I got into real estate, because I bought right before the COVID, right before I got my agency, I bought my first house. So I qualified for FHA. I bought my first house. I knew I was going to fix and flip it. And I said, okay, I'm going to fix and flip it. Kind of did that over over the COVID where I kind of took all of that free money that they gave us here in the United States, right? And I invested it back into my home. So I needed like all the 1,500 square feet of new paint. I had like three floors to do. Then I had all new flooring and stuff like that. So I put it right back into my house instead of like everybody was traveling, all over the place, using all this free money, not paying bills. And, I kept paying my mortgage and I kept doing what I was, doing
Mhm.
and working from home and stuff. And that's how I got into real estate, like fixing and flipping. So I wound up being diagnosed with skin cancer over the COVID. And right. So now we're in like
Wow.
December of 2020, right? And I remember we couldn't get to the doctor, right? Nobody could go to the doctor. I would always go to get my annual, like no problem, have my blood
Mhm.
panel, all that stuff. So I missed one, or it's late, right, or whatever, right, because of the COVID. So I went to the doctor. She's like, okay, let's make sure you go to the dermatologist and this and that. And I had just started to go to the dermatologist like right before the COVID because I have a lot of beauty marks all over my body. So they want to make sure that nothing happens. So and of course something did happen. So that was just so weird and strange. And like for me to get skin cancer was like the wildest thing that I ever thought would happen. Like I'm not a sun goddess, right? And I get skin cancer and it completely depletes my body. Like all my vitamin deficiencies, like all my vitamins were gone. So I had vitamin deficiencies everywhere. I had to get B shots weekly. I had to get blood
Mm.
infusions, like iron infusions, and I got two of them. So I was under like doctor's care for 9 months. And in that period, like I saw every doctor under the sun. I was like, I want to see everybody, like follow my surgeons I had surgery. And I was like, I was like, I just want to do everything. I want to make sure, even the podiatrist, I was just like, I need to see everybody. I don't want to make sure there's nothing else wrong with me. And then I wound up getting reconstructive surgery at that time too, because I qualified for it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go get this done too. And I basically had like a midlife crisis slash epiphany. And that's where God whispered in my ear. He said, you're ready now. And I said, ready for what? He said, you're ready to sell the house and move to Florida and do Airbnbs. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I never thought about doing that before. Like, that was never a thought that came across my mind, was to do Airbnbs. So, or like get into that space, into the vacation rental space, go into real estate that way, like because I already had experience doing a fix and flip. So we basically sold the house in 5 days over the COVID. It went super fast. I was in like a phenomenal school district that everybody wanted. It was right before the fall would come and stuff like
Mm.
that. So I did a really good job, staging it. Like I learned how to do everything in real estate, staging it, listing it, like all that stuff. I mean, I didn't have my license, but I had an agent. But I learned how to do everything because I had to do everything myself, except for like some minor handyman stuff or whatever things I couldn't do. So by September of 21, I relocated down to Florida to do the vacation rental industry. And that's how I started a few companies down here. I actually originally started an investment company with my ex. And I then pivoted to doing real estate property management because I was like, I basically ran through all the money I made on the house when I sold the house to get down here because it was so expensive. The housing market was expensive. It just started to do a lot of crazy stuff. Nobody would show me a house like virtually, even though they were starting to do that. But because I was out of state, they wouldn't do it. So I had to like rent, like I had to book Airbnbs. So I lived in Airbnbs for the first 3, 4 months when I was here, and it's expensive. You're talking about thousands of dollars a month to stay in an Airbnb, right? So I was like, so we got tapped out, and I hit my ultimate financial low at that point. Like I was like, actually became homeless for a week. I was homeless for a week, living in a hotel. So
Oh,
technically, I wasn't really like homeless, but I was. Like I didn't have a home, but I had,
yeah.
I was able to at least have the money to, be in a hotel. So I was fortunate enough to find housing. It wasn't in the greatest place or even the greatest situation. And that's where I sort of birthed my new companies here. So I, established them here. I created the foundation here. I set up all the structure. I basically went into a 3-month isolation period just to
Hmm.
get all of that stuff in line. And
Wow.
then I was broke, and I and I had to like get a job. So I actually went into management for like a cleaning company, and that's how I learned about how to do turnover services here with my real estate property management company. So I have a full service property management company for vacation rentals. So I do everything from acquire the property to convert it to turning it to staging it to doing, I do everything. So, and that's what
Wow.
I did in that 3 months. I birthed these 10, well, at first it was 10 services. I downgraded now to, I think it's 8, but it was 10 services that I'm basically an all-in-one, like like a one-stop shop, right? Like, so if I work with you as an owner or an investor, like they don't need to go to anybody else. The only thing we need to do is get like contractors or, whatever's going on, like those types of services, because I'm not a contracting business, but I can manage it, I can run it, I can coordinate, schedule, I can do all this stuff. And then other things too, like I was even doing like light landscaping, aesthetic, staging, design, all this stuff to get the house converted to what we wanted it to be, whether that was, a short term, midterm, it didn't matter. So I actually also did establish my insurance agency here too, but it took over a year for that to go live because of all my licenses and all my
Hmm.
like Florida and Pennsylvania made it very difficult for me to get everything transferred over here. And it was just a little frustrating because I was like, okay, so I have to do A first, then B, then C, then D, which is, I mean, that's normal, right? But the process was so elongated. It was just like, oh my gosh. I'm like, and then I lost a few states because those states didn't have like grace periods. Like most states have a 30-day grace period. So like when my license basically gets terminated in Pennsylvania, and
Hmm.
there's typically a grace period of 30 days for most states, and then it's in a transition period going to Florida. So it's like we're communicating, right? Pennsylvania's communicating with another state, or states are communicating, and there's a couple of states that just aren't hip to technology, I guess. I don't know. So I lost a few states, and that's basically where we are now. So we were able to go live. I actually started the process of creating a performing arts society here. I have that as well. It's not live yet, but it was started. I have a venue. It's called the St. Petersburg City Theater that I can possibly utilize to do shows, or also do master classes and workshops and stuff like that. And then also, I mean, really, it's about finding the performers, like finding those semi-professional, professional locals who like are eager and want to, have venues to perform in. So my idea is that, so a long time ago, when my dad and I were performing together, we actually assisted in creating a uh, a whole circuit for Christian music. So there was a circuit of performances that we kind of assisted in and performed in at different coffee houses and different locations throughout where we were living at the time, which was Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. So, so I said to myself, okay, I can do that here. Okay, I just got to find, the venues, right? And I found some awesome little venues. Like I found, well, the City Theater, and then which is a big venue, and then there's this cool like coffee house music store, like guitar store. Found that. There's this other like cool like lounge, R&B lounge, and they do like some spoken word there too. Or that was my idea actually. I want to get performing artists who in every genre, music, dance, theater, spoken word, poetry, literature, all that, right? And what my idea is to go to a venue and say, hey, would you like to have music here? Like once a week. And it's throughout St. Petersburg. And they would say, yeah, I would love that. I mean, it's going to bring business in for you automatically if they have like coffee house there, or, obviously that's, food and drink is going to get sold, or the music store, people are going to buy stuff, right? So I would schedule performers of their choice to be there. So let's say, well, I really want to have a spoken word night, or I really want to have an R&B night, or I want to have acoustic rock night, whatever, right? So then I would find the artists to accommodate what they wanted at, like, once a week. And it was basically to create this whole circuit of music, performing arts, all that stuff, right? Where not just the locals would, like, really love to go to, right? But everybody that's coming here, into the area, that there's going to always be something to go, that, like, there would always be something going on, like, several days of the week. Maybe not every day of the week, like Mondays, but or Tuesdays, or maybe Mondays but not Tuesdays. But let's say Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, like that's a lot of days where we have music available, not at every venue, but at least one or two venues every night, right? Or every day, or whatever. So that's something I started back in June, and I just had to step back from it because it just wasn't going the way, like, it's like, how sometimes, like, it's just not the right time. So it was kind of like the timing was, I just felt like, okay, I'm not getting the type of uh reception that I need, like, from the local community. So I said, I'm just going to take a step back. So I created, the page, and I have all that stuff and whatever, but that's still a work in progress. So maybe sometime in the new year I will venture with that. And then, as I was telling you, I'm actually revamping, or getting my artist page back and up and running, because 20 years ago we didn't have anything digital. Like, all my stuff is on cassette that needs to be, like, um converted, and it doesn't sound that great. I keep messing with it, but, and then I wanted to scan some pictures, some old stuff, right? And then, just so that it's there. And then, so that's actually going to be done today, because I keep on, messing with it, and I'm like, God, but the page is ready. It just, I want to put some extra little things on there. So, and so yeah, I'm just kind of like, I got my, I'm very busy. I do a lot of things, and I have my two businesses. I'm actually launching my own personal brand for entrepreneurial business consulting services in the new year, as well as being a keynote speaker, because obviously now, I have an incredible story. I've only kind of, like, touched on stuff and went quickly through it, kind of, being a domestic violence survivor, a cancer survivor. Um, I've also been going through my own healing journey, from my trauma, so I've been working on myself the last 2 years, to really just be able to forgive myself, love myself, and release all that hurt that I kept in my heart from the last 20 years, from people just hurting me, just over and over again. So I've been working on that. So I actually feel like it's going to be time for me to start songwriting again, because, like, I used to be afraid to do it, and I would say, and I'm like, I'm not ready yet, like, because I don't know what's going to come out. Like, it's going to be crazy hot mess, like, it's going to be nuts. So I wasn't really ready to do that. So now I'm, like, feeling. So you see my piano is back here. Hello. And so it's like half hooked up, and the studio is half hooked up because I gotta remember how to really get it there. But I mean, I can play it, so that's fine. But I think I'm emotionally and mentally ready to, start songwriting again, and really be able to tell my story through song of everything that I've gone through.
Sorry, my cat is playing with one of my ornaments again with the
That
hook on it. It will
oh
hurt her.
oh no, let's
Anyway,
not do that.
no, I didn't want to really interrupt you. That's a beautiful story.
Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone,
It's a lot to tell.
Jackie's Audible book is available now. She just spoke the whole thing, so if you want to actually hear her book, just rewatch this. That that was an inspirational story, Jackie.
Thank
I'm so
you.
sorry that had to happen to you. Wow, that was like when you were born to now. It's amazing. Like, have you ever thought of writing a book?
I actually, so I've, it's so funny that you said that. I've actually become a published author, and wrote 3 books in 30 days just last month. But there were two were planning journals, and one was a guided workbook on self-love. So it's called Love Yourself, and a guided workbook to learning how to love yourself first. So that has happened, but there's going to be a preface book to the workbook, and it's going to be basically my journey of love, you know, loving other people, but of loving myself from like the last 20 years. So all that
Wow.
that led up to this point, and then my healing journey for the last 2 years. So that book is going to be coming. I don't know when. And then, of course, there's my memoirs, which is like, my life story of somewhere down the road. I don't know how it's going to get written or when, or if it'll be soon. I'm pretty sure that the preface book to the guided workbook will happen first. And then, later on, maybe my memoirs once I have my success as a keynote speaker and, a business consultant for entrepreneurs, and I kind of take off with that. So I may wait a little while.
That's beautiful. As long as you can send us maybe an autographed copy, and
Of
we'll link
course.
everything down below. Make sure that people will gravitate towards Jacquie Cassella. And I
Thank
hope
you
that word
so much.
semi-professional singer is gone from your, like, it's not semi, get rid of that word.
Okay, so I'll get rid of that word and get rid of former too.
Um, Jacquie, very, very inspirational story. I want to ask you about,
Sure.
I don't want to go and gravitate towards this time when you were emotionally and physically abused by your husband, but
hmm
what was that like for you? What was going through your mind? And it must have just
Well,
destroyed your hope.
I mean, after I lost my children the first year that we were married, I went through about a year of grieving, and he went on a very like slow decline. So he wound up, so he wasn't diagnosed right away with his mental illness, and then he wound up self-medicating. So I lived in 12 years of self-medicating addiction
Mm.
with him. So for me, in the very beginning, yeah, I was definitely a little like, I lost myself, emotionally, mentally. Um, there was love there. We loved each other, whatever, but and it wasn't like all terrible. Do you know what I mean? Like it kind of slowly went really declining over 12 years. By the time the end, I was like by myself like 70, 80% of the time, missing like he wouldn't be there for birthdays or holidays. Like I would just be home alone all the time. And I'm like, why am I married if I'm by myself? Right. So that's sort of like when I woke up, I was like, I shouldn't be in a marriage by myself. So, so it was like, you know, he wasn't he wasn't physically abusive, like I said. He wasn't, I mean, if anything, it was probably more mental abuse because of what I had to go through with him on a daily basis as he, slowly declined and, his mental illness took over and self-medicating and all that other stuff. And then emotionally, right? Because I'm like, what's like, is there something wrong with me? No, there's nothing wrong with me. It's everything is wrong with him. Do you know what I mean? It's not me, it's him. So it was like getting through all of that, realizing that, to get to that point. And that's where I was like, it's time to go, and I had planned my exit for like 2 years, and it just wasn't working. It just didn't, like, everything I tried to, do to get a better job, better situation just wasn't working. And so it's like no matter what I did, it was just like I'm hitting a wall. And 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 God was like it just happened. It just happened that one day. It just happened. I was just like, I stood up for myself. I think we had gotten to an argument. I came from a job interview actually, and I came home and I was just like, something had happened. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this with you anymore. And then that's when I was like, I'm leaving. And then that's when he just snapped. And then that was it. He started beating my face. So, because he didn't want me to leave. So, and within minutes, to be honest, like the police came, like the neighbors called the police because they heard me screaming. I didn't even know I was screaming. I mean, I remember, but I didn't know at the time that I was screaming for anyone to do that, to help me. So I mean, that was one of the times in my life that I could have died because, he basically didn't stop until the police came. So it was very quick, you know. So and I mean, and the first time, well, the first time I could have died 3 times. So I'm like the Phoenix. So I had a car accident when I was 17, and the car
Hmm.
spun out of control. I could have went off this mountain hill thing and whatever, but that didn't happen. It just sort of spun, thank God, and whatever, went the other direction. So that was my first encounter with death. And then the second one was when I was starting to hemorrhage out with one of my children. And then the third time was when I became his victim. So, you know, it's just, it's, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. So clearly, I'm like titanium. So I'm very, very strong and he's made me that way to endure all the things that I have endured and then be able to come out of the other side and be who I am right now, like who I am, who I was meant to be, who I am meant to be, my true self, and I don't have any hesitations about speaking my truth and who I am. Like, if it makes you uncomfortable about what I'm talking about, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to like keep my voice quiet or not say what I need to say or just be open, honest, direct, and transparent. Like, that's just how I am. So, I think it's just, it's something that made me much stronger. God just wanted to like remove me like immediately, like from the situation. Like, there was no prep work. God was, and it was just like, okay, you're done now. Whoosh, like that was it. So it was kind of like in the moment, a little bit of a whirlwind, and I was actually unemployed at the time. Like, I was on unemployment. Like, it was the worst case situation. And then I had to do what I had to do to survive. So I did have to learn how to do something to help myself. And then that's when I wind up having the opportunity to become, like, 6 months later, to be going to the insurance field. So it was like, just a saving grace, but God always aligned my path, and he always brought to me who I needed, strangers if I was starving, or, whatever, because I was trying to put my life back together from nothing, from like ground zero, right? So, I had to fix my credit. I had to fix my debt to income ratio was like really high, like because of him, and 70%, and all this crazy stuff. My insurance was crazy because he got into situations with the car that affected, because we were on a policy together. So many things. I had to learn to do all that. How to fix and repair my credit. How to fix my own insurance score. Like, how to like dispute this stuff. I had to learn how to be my own divorce lawyer. Like, I had to write my own divorce. Like, all this stuff. Like, I've learned so many different things and skills along the way to help myself, because I had no help. I had no one. I had no support system. I had no money. I had to just learn how to be resilient and resourceful, and that's it.
Wow. Just when you brought that fact up that you had lost children, may I ask whether this was a stillborn birth of your children, or did they die
Um,
somewhere? Mind me
well,
asking?
what happened was, is my first child, the heart stopped at the end of my first trimester. So I was actually supposed to be in my second trimester, and the baby had died inside me. So, and was just hanging out, so
Oh.
that was the moment that for that pregnancy I actually started to bleed out, like I hemorrhaged out. I don't know if that was the moment that the baby's heart stopped. Like, I don't know what happened. So they had to remove the fetus from me, and it was like I was supposed to be like almost 12 weeks, and it was in, it was
Oh.
inside of me still. So then I basically got pregnant too quickly after my first one, like kind of accidentally, because it wasn't like planned. Like, I had to have surgery for them to remove it. So, you have to wait even to have, intercourse, right? So you have to wait. And like weeks, like 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks or whatever, before, you can do anything, in regards to sexual activity. So I got pregnant too soon after my first child, and my environment wasn't healthy. So my second child was not healthy. It was very, very
Mhm.
sick. It had spina bifida. And at the time, they were talking about $80,000 in experimental to possibly
Oh.
see if the baby was going to survive, if I was going to survive. Like, they were like, we don't know if you're going to survive. We don't know if the baby's going to survive. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. So, they're like, we either have two choices. We either can, invest $80,000 into experimental whatever that they were talking about at the time. It wasn't like drugs, it was like experimental medicine, I guess, right? Or we can have the baby removed because they really were like, we don't know if the baby's going to survive, but what's worse is we don't even know if you're going to survive. So when I heard that, I had to just make the choice. And because I couldn't allow my husband to go through like me dying. Like it's one thing, like he already lost his only 12-year-old son in a freak accident. So
Mm.
he can't lose his wife too. Do you know what I mean? At like the
Oh,
same year. So I had to make the decision
imagine
for
that.
the baby to be removed from me so that, I would be able to be here.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
No,
I
it's
know
okay.
with my strong faith in the Lord, I know that your children will be waiting for you in heaven. Um,
Oh, they are. They're always with
how
me.
did how did your relationship with God, like, how did all this, the car accident, your loss of your children, and your husband's abuse, how did did it shake your faith with God
No,
up a bit, or were you
no, to be
always that?
honest, yeah, I was always I always had strong faith. I was the only one in my family to have a true deep relationship with God, like since birth. Like I was the only one to go through, I was Roman Catholic, so I went through all of, well, whatever, through confirmation. Sorry, I was thinking of another word. So I was actually, I got my communion confirmed, everything. My sisters didn't even do all that. Like I would go, they would drop me off at church by myself and not go into church. It was just so wild. So and that was when I was younger. So I've always had a relationship with God. I always talk to him as if he's a person in the room. So I don't, I didn't like, I mean, when I was a little girl, I would get on my knees and pray, but then I learned I didn't need to do that, that I could just talk to him whenever I needed to speak to him. And it was because of him that I had all those opportunities. I mean, at such a young age to, you know, I mean, first of all, I mean, we didn't have a lot. Like we were kind of poor, you know what I mean? But I grew up with a lot of love in my household, like with my family. We had music, like people thought we were rich, but we were not at all, So I had a wonderful childhood just in regards to being, raised with morals and values and that you could do anything that you want to do and all this stuff. And but I always had a very, very strong faith. Like there was only like two times that I questioned anything in my life. And once was I was like 12 or 13 and I was like afraid to die because I guess I was just I don't know. I guess I was just I literally felt afraid to die. And I guess it's because I just didn't know where I would go. And I had a friend's mother speak to me about it and she kind of helped me through that moment of my life. And then when I lost my children that year, I went through like a year of grieving, and then I had to wake up. I had to get myself like out of that, right? So, but that year I just questioned him just in regards to like why did this happen to me? Like why did it happen at all? And really it all just came back from is that I married the wrong person. I made the wrong decision. This was the consequence to my action, to my decisions, and it was a mistake. Because think about it. Like the day I got married, I had a major car accident that changed my whole spine. Like I had a 22, I had a body of 65 from a car accident. And then he loses his child 2 months later. Then we lose two babies that same year. Like all that stuff shouldn't have happened. That was a sign for me to get out, for me to leave. Like I shouldn't have been there. But because I was raised that, oh, you get married and you stay for better for worse, whatever, right? Like I should have never stayed there for 12 years. I mean, maybe like a year or two, okay, but not for 12 years. Like I should have been left, right? So, and I lost myself. I lost myself saving somebody else and it was impossible. And I literally like lost 12 years of my life. So, and ever since I left, which was in 2014, I've been trying to recover myself, finding myself again. like being who I truly am and who I'm meant to be, and then healing from that.
I know that Jesus is there with his arms waiting for us to come into his arms. I've been a believer for almost 30 years, over a little over
Yeah,
30 years, and I've
that's
come through
wonderful.
death three times.
Hmm.
I remember once my friend and I were on our way to a Christian concert. We were talking. He was going like this, you know. It was
Yeah.
dark, and then suddenly, while he's talking, he goes, and he went like this, and I went, "What?" And we were 1 foot away from smacking right into a brick abutment. And if that had happened, it's sort of like
Wow.
God said, "Watch it."
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I
He's like,
wouldn't be
watch
here.
out.
And there's several times. Oh, Jackie. So this is amazing. I wanted to get back to when you were discussing music. We'll go back into music because I know that, I mean, this is genuinely a great inspirational story. And like, we can't wait to read your memoirs and read your books and all the information
Thank
you're going to
you.
send me, right?
Yes, of
Um,
course. I'm sending you everything. I already
um,
started that email this morning.
so it says that when you age of 12, like you mentioned, you began formally training and quickly emerged into the scene with stage performances and event appearances. Now, I want to start with what were the stage performances? With the
Well,
musical theater?
no, I actually wound up like right when I started to train, my current teacher had got me involved with something called um it was called the Lancaster Musical Arts Society. And it was for young artists to develop themselves in performance, and they would, give critique and like help you to learn how to perform. And all of us were really superior musicians, like anyway, like we were great, singers and pianists, and it was like we had a really good bunch of young, talented, uh, preteens and teenagers, right? So that's how I learned how to perform, was being a part of that society, and really, like, my dad and I would do weddings and funerals and all kinds of stuff. We would harmonize. He would play the guitar. Like, I really grew up in a rock and roll household. Like, I learned how to do so many things, and I mean, we wrote music together. I started writing music with him when I was 3, and
Hmm.
we wrote a song about my imaginary friend. So, like, that was,
You had
like,
one
it
too,
was.
huh?
Yes, I had an imaginary friend. His name was Echo, and that was the
Mine
song that
was
we wrote
Douglas.
together. Oh, cool. So, but yeah, so we were very musically involved together, and my dad actually wound up going to college with me. He had to stop going to college when I was born,
Hmm.
and then he returned back to college while I was like in the middle or finishing. So he finished his degree when I was in school as well in college. So that was pretty big too. I mean, I've done so many things, just all kinds of local competitions. I starred in my first opera at 18,
Oh,
at a
wow.
local opera house.
What was the
I
opera?
It was called Marianne the Little Match Girl. It was an independent, like, children's opera that every year they would do like a Christmas children's opera, and this was the one year they did something different, and I starred in that. And
Wow.
so I just had so many opportunities to perform, like through my current teachers, through school. Like I was in like there was a competitive choir in high school, and I went from counties, districts, regionals to states. Like I did everything and anything you could think of, that was available to me. And then through college too, there we had nats competitions, National Association of Teachers of Singing, and I won that competition every year, first, second place every year. Like I was always first and second, to be honest. And I was more first than second. So the time I got seconds, either I was robbed or I had to be humbled. You know what I mean? So it was it was either one. But um, so it's just a lot of, like, God gave me all of those opportunities. Like I've done things that people have not done. Like you weren't given those types of opportunities. I went to school, I went to college for
Uh,
free.
opportunities.
Yes, opportunities. So yeah, I just had a lot of, blessings and abundance of opportunities that just came my way. And it was just because I was living like I was living who I was meant to be. You know what I mean? Like so it was just everything was perfectly aligned and um and it just things just kept coming and coming and coming. Like I was like I was practicing like till 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning. Like, and that's for shows. Like all kinds of stuff was going on as a 12,
Mm.
13, 14 year old, like I'm out, like it was just, the way it was. So, so I was always busy and always performing and had so many different venues, like I mentioned already, to perform and I was asked to perform at other venues. So I would be doing like there was like two shows a year or maybe three. I think there was three, fall, spring, and summer with the society. And then like other people would be like, oh hey, can you do this wedding or hey, we
Hmm.
have an event, whatever. So it just would keep on coming more and more opportunities. I mean, so it wasn't just stuff at school, like middle school and high school. Yeah, no, no, no. I was really doing stuff in the community, in other states. Like I was doing stuff. I was performing. So,
It's amazing. Wow. I'm very, very excited to ask you about these five beautiful languages to sing. Which languages are they?
well, I'm Sicilian Italian, so Italian's my primary language for opera, and then there's French. I studied French for 5 years
Mhm.
formally, like in high school and college, and then I learned early on Latin, so we had to learn Latin in a as in a choir situation because a lot of songs on a choir level is Latin,
Mhm. Yeah.
especially at Christmas, right? So that's kind of how I started learning Latin early, but not formally. You know what I mean? I didn't learn Latin formally. I learned it as I was singing, and coaches and teachers taught me. Same thing was with dabbled a little bit with Spanish, but that's similar to Italian. And then I did take also 1 year of German, but
Oh,
that was
wow.
like that's my least favorite language. I think it sounds like, but whatever. I just did it because I had to also do like for my junior and senior recital to graduate, like I had to kind of learn German too. So I did that in college. So, so there's five languages, but I'm not like completely conversational in all of them. I'm really more conversational in Italian and French, if anything, but there's just no one to speak with. So I can sing more than in these languages than I can talk, but I can understand them, like if I'm out and about or something and people start speaking, I'm like, oh, I can understand what they're saying, things like that. But it's more of like on that level. So my singing and understanding is better than my speaking.
Well, you mentioned Latin, so I wonder if I think Agnes D, I think, is Latin and
Yes.
Pia Jesu. Am
Yep,
I
I
correct?
actually sang that. Yeah, I sang that actually for one of my either my senior or my junior recital. I can't remember.
Well, Jackie, if you know what a Mount Everest song is, my Mount Everest song is Nessun Dorma. It's a Puccini
Oh,
opera.
okay. Yes.
Turandot.
Oh, I
Now,
love Puccini.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I get to see that show in February, which is down at our Living Arts Center, which is only 10-minute walk from here. So I plan
Oh,
to
cool.
get a ticket to that. And on the weekend, I went to nicely, kindly, who was just closing the doors to the venue. I said, "Can you open them so I can take a look at the seating plan?" So he said, "Okay." So
Oh,
he opened the door for me, and he couldn't turn the lights on,
oh,
but I
that's
saw the
great.
whole. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so I got to get a ticket around maybe here near the state, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be expensive,
Yeah.
but yes. And I actually performed there
Amazing.
once as
Oh,
well, Oh Holy
good.
Night.
Okay,
So I'm
awesome.
also a
Wonderful.
vocalist, but I know my audience is going to say, "Not that again! Stop talking about yourself." Uh,
That's
but
okay. I like to learn
but
about
and
people.
so and I don't know that much conversational German, but I sang Stille Nacht.
Oh,
Um,
yes, that's a very popular
Silent
song.
Night in German. I try, and I like to learn. I like to sing a little bit more Latin and
Yes,
sing a little bit more Italian. But anyways, this podcast is about you. Sorry to digress.
that's
Um,
okay.
so yes, I love it that you sing in five beautiful languages, and I have yet to sing in Spanish, but I know that one day if I put my mind to it, I could. So
Yeah.
yeah, what a very inspirational story, and look where you are today. You're here
Yes,
with
I came
us,
out on the other side.
and we're amazed. And thank you. And we've had problems having you scheduled, and here you are. And we're so grateful to God to bring you on our platform.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
I wanted to ask you. So you were mentioning about your getting into insurance. Is that the current Casella Insurance Solutions?
Yes, that's my current agency here in Florida, and that's what it'll be forever now. It's going to be Casella Insurance Solutions. In Pennsylvania, I had a different name, but this is the name that's going to stick now forever.
So let me ask you. So when you have to come up with a company and you use your own name, you don't have to go through the courts and everything to register it. Is that true?
Well, I do. I mean, I did have to do, I mean, here in Florida, the process is a little different, but every state is different. So I actually have to register on a state level first and to make sure that the name isn't taken, and then register with them and pay them a fee. And then I get an EIN number, and then I can get bank accounts and all other stuff. So, I mean, my last name is quite unique. You know, you don't hear it all the time, and other people do have it, but, you don't hear that name all the time. So I just decided to use my last name and, create some kind of legacy for my name. Whether I don't currently, I don't have children and I'm not married, so I don't have a
Mm.
legacy, but there will be a legacy left.
That's now not having children. You almost had two children there and a husband, and now it's like, oh, that's. I'm so
Yeah,
humbled by stories like this, so inspirational. I really hate to ask you questions that aren't related to tragedy, but because
that's
I've gone
okay.
through it, but and also you're a CEO and president at Elevate Stellar Reality. Can you give us a little bit
Yes.
of an idea of what? I know you're a realtor, but exactly how did you
Well, no,
start with it?
I'm actually not. Yeah, not a realtor. I'm in real estate property management. I came down here to
Okay,
be an investor. Remember, because I said because I do
investor.
fix and yeah, because I do fix and flips, right? I fix and flip my own first house. So that's how I got into real estate. I'm actually in the process of getting my real estate license only because to protect my
Mm.
company and if the state like changes rules later on. But so yeah, that's my full service property management company I was talking about earlier for vacation rentals. So I do short and midterm rentals, and then once I get my license, I'll be able to do long term rentals as well. And right now the economy is has
Mhm.
slowed down my business exponentially. So because not people people aren't traveling as much. So I'm now trying to shift gears and transition. Hence, like I'm doing my personal branding because people want to work with you. It's not about your company. I mean, yes, people need your services as a company, like for property
Mhm.
management or insurance, but people work with you because of you, not because of your company. So that's what I'm focusing on for the new year is launching my own brand. And like I said, that's where I'll be, focusing on being a keynote speaker at events, networking events, organizations, associations, conferences, being a keynote speaker for those things. And then also helping others to become entrepreneurs. Like I said, I have 30 years business experience. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 12. So, and I learned
Mhm.
it from nothing, with nothing. So I want to help other people do the same thing.
Just so you know, everyone, for the last hour, there's been an earthquake in their area, but knowing that she's a woman of empowerment, she's able to have this conversation. I'm
Thank
joking.
you.
I'm joking. But yes, so you know what? I believe that vocal training, like you could be one of these. Uh, what do you call them? That they teach you vocal exercises. You could be a
Well,
um,
I was a
vocal
piano
teacher.
teacher and a vocal teacher and a vocal coach.
Yeah,
So, and I did that
you could go
mostly for
back to that.
beginners. Yeah, I mean, I don't it's not really my heart to do that. I will go back into vocal coaching if it's to facilitate doing artist development. So that's kind of like where I'm going to like possibly pivot, if I do something in music is that I'm going to, do some scouting, help artists develop their skills. And then of course if it's in the voice, genre, then, do some kind of vocal coaching for them.
Oh yeah, and if I ever can do a duet with you, and I bet you sound really nice. Uh,
That would be
but
nice.
I'd be really excited to know that you took a tour of Tuscany, Italy, and then you studied under
Hmm.
tutelage of a prima donna from Scala. Do you remember the name of this prima donna?
Yes, Tiziana Carraro.
Okay. And what was it
Yes.
like for you, Tuscany and Italy and all that? Did you get
Well, I
most of
lived
your
in
Italian? Did you pick up most of your Italian there?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in an Italian household, so we always spoke in like a broken dialect. And then when I started to sing, like then I know more Italian than anybody else in the house. So when I went to Italy, I was able to become more conversational. And she only spoke Italian, so I had to like literally like learn how to understand her, and because I had like little to no interpreter. So I really, learned how to understand, conversation and then speak, how as best as I can. So, I mean, I lived in Siena, Italy. That's where I lived, and then I toured all of Tuscany,
Wow.
into Naples and Venice as well. Actually, into Switzerland too, and France. So, that was my whole tour when I lived there for a few months one summer.
Wow. And actually to continue training and debut at the world's renowned opera house, were you able to sing with her? Or did she say, okay, you can go and do your own thing?
Well, she wanted me to stay. She
Hmm.
didn't want me to come back to the United States. She wanted
Mm.
me to stay and continue studying with her, and then I would have debuted at La Scala.
Well, what do you want
But
to
I wind up
gravitate
coming home.
towards? Okay, so you were
Um,
wanting to come home,
what do you
but
mean
what do you
gravitate
want to
towards what?
what do you want to graduate? What do you want to gravitate towards if you could only do one thing in your life?
That's impossible. I wasn't meant to do that.
Mm.
I'm meant to do everything that I'm doing. I'm meant to touch the lives of the world, everyone in the world. That's why I have the story that I have, because one word, one sentence will resonate with every single person on this planet.
I can imagine
So,
your clients at Casella Insurance Solution. You're like, at 5% put down, we will make sure it grows.
sometimes I do go into like a song, a speak song thing. You're right, but
Yeah. Well,
not
I knew
quite
a
like
guy.
that. But
He's a real estate agent, and there's a picture of him. You know these realtors, they always have a card which has like their
hmm
name of their. Well, he was a guitar player, so there was a picture of him holding a guitar just to get
okay.
conversation. Whoa, wait, you have a guitar? So so okay, we'll let you sell the house, but we'll also, invite you to perform at our wedding or so that works like that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, right. It's kind of having a diversified portfolio of your own talents, skills, and abilities.
Yeah. It says you're entrepreneurial business consultant and keynote speaker, which you mentioned. So, what are some of the things you discuss as a keynote speaker? Like, do you do like TED Talks and stuff?
Well, I'm basically going to be operating as a motivational speaker. I've been asked to be a keynote speaker for like in a women's conference before. So my focus is going to be sharing my story, my life story, and like I said, there's always going to be something, one sentence, one word that everyone on this in this world will resonate with. So it's really just focusing on my journey, what I've endured, and all of my successes as well as my downfalls.
Well, if talking about being a keynote speaker or being a motivational speaker, you're the one to do it. I
Yeah,
mean, with
yeah.
your story and upcoming memoirs and everything, I would definitely hire you to be a motivational speaker to
Thank
whoever,
you.
has issues and problems here, like myself. I'd be calling, I have an issue.
Well,
I'd
yeah,
be
you
call
could do,
Jackie.
yeah, I mean, you could do conferences, organizations, associations, so I mean, I could be speaking on a business level, like to a room of business professionals, but my own personal story is very much incorporated into my business experience. So, I would,
This is
be
awesome.
speaking about that. So it's that's what I mean. Like for me, it's the intertwining of the two, that my personal experience also shaped my business journey.
Well, I'd like to shout out to someone, Kylie Montigny from Talk of Fame podcast. She's got her own business on Empowerment Girls, and she has a lot of people with inspirational stories, singers, songwriters, motivational speakers. I think she should get you on her platform. Like, you're
Well,
amazing.
thank you. We'll
I should
make the
get you on.
connection.
Can you highlight any emerging technologies or innovations that are shaping the landscape with other entrepreneurs?
There's a lot of unique AI tools out there like ChatGPT. Those
Hmm.
things are really emerging on the scenes. I use them a lot actually in my businesses and for,
Oh,
bios and things like that. So I actually utilize that a lot, even for outlines
wow.
and stuff on projects that I'm working, like for my books or my courses and stuff like that. So I mean, that's a really big platform that I just recently started using like a few months ago. So, I mean, besides just the typical, like, I use a lot of Microsoft and Adobe and Canva and, things like that. You just sort of learn things as you go along because technology is changing every day. Like something new is always happening. So it's like, and it's something to benefit us. So it's, you know what I mean? Like it helps us as entrepreneurs and business owners and companies, just move forward.
Please send me your email. Am I allowed to
Sure.
forward your email to certain people? Okay, good.
Yes, please. Of course.
Jackie, I want to say, how do you stay informed about industry trends and what resources or publications do you find most valuable?
I mean, I honestly use a lot of audiobooks and a lot of like YouTube, trainings and recordings, videos, right? And so there's like a bunch of people that I like to follow on like the Apple Podcasts or like the
Hmm.
Spotify or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, as well as on YouTube. So there's a lot of like trainers, like very successful people, like in real estate and in ministry. So and just a whole in insurance, or just people who are just successful entrepreneurs. So I just sort of like follow these people, and I'm like trying to gain some of their knowledge, about business credit and real estate and how to emerge, as a keynote speaker, all kinds of things like this. So
Wow.
I utilize a lot of, like, to be honest, a lot of audiobooks, a lot of, YouTube videos, so that's like really big for me, that I do myself. And, like they said, that like the Apple podcast situation.
Yeah, I mean, you can never be too old to be a singer, or be uh, to have a Florida, like to have a property management company or an insurance solutions. Did you have any main challenges facing the industry, and how do businesses navigate them?
I mean, the biggest challenge that I've had is just getting out there. Like I'm new, like I'm the new kid on the block. Nobody knows who I am. So, I've actually did a lot of networking in Facebook groups as well as going to local networking events, becoming, members of those. So, for me that was like it's just getting connected and meeting people and then collaborating with other people in the community.
That's amazing. Wow, you're such a powerful woman, like a woman of empowerment. That's awesome. So you
Thank
say
you.
you go to YouTube, so you must check out and watch all the TED talks, right? Like TEDx talks. I love those. I love
Oh, no,
those.
I actually no, I don't know. I just kind of whatever is really interesting. Like right now I have on YouTube and it's playing Christmas jazz at a coffee shop.
Well, that's
So like
amazing.
I put on that. I'll put on like the Tibetan like, healing sounds. Like I'll
Mm.
do like there's a few
ASMR.
like yeah, there's a few like handful of like business entrepreneurs, very successful, like multi-million dollar people, right, that I kind of like I watch them a lot on YouTube and things like that.
Well, you ever heard of autonomic sensory meridian response, ASMR? That is
I I don't
that's
think so.
amazing. Well, a lot of them are women, but there are some men. What they do is they have these very sensitive mics. They go,
Yes.
"Welcome to
Oh.
the ASMR show," and then they'll take like a paintbrush or
I've
whatever,
heard that
and just
before.
do or do this with a lighter or light a match. People like to hear the sound of a crackling fire, water crashing
Yes.
against the shore. So that's
Yeah.
what ASMR, and it's supposed to settle
Well,
you
I
down.
actually sleep to rain sounds, so I didn't know
Yeah,
that that's what it's called. So I sleep to rain
that's sort
sounds.
of
I
the
do
same thing.
like the fireplace, playing on the YouTube with the music in the background, or like you said, like oceans, So I enjoy that a lot, actually. It helps to
That's
relax
amazing,
me.
Jackie. Can you share with our audience what your advice or specialty to someone who has ended up in the same sort of predicament that you have? Maybe not all of them, but most of them, and how you get through them. What's the first step?
I mean, you just have to. You got to find yourself, and you got to work on yourself. You got to work on your own personal healing. If you don't like have any type of passion or didn't have an identity before that, you got to find yourself first. So, usually your purpose is found in your passion. So you have to, navigate through that.
That's amazing. So, apart from that, when you're dealing with your mental health and you're doing this ASMR type thing and you're just relaxing and trying to get yourself, um, does the past, like with your husband and the loss of your children, does that enter your mind quite a bit? And you're like, no, no, and then you kind of get kind of in a
No,
depression again? No?
no, no. That time of my life is like almost 10 years ago. Like that was something that I went through, maybe the first year. I would wake up with
Mm,
nightmares and stuff. And yes, like the loss of my children has actually been very, up until recently, like I think 2 Mother's Days ago, I was able to actually accept it and enjoy it and embrace being a mother, even if my children aren't here. So I was no longer depressed about that. And so I mean,
wow.
I'm that like that part of my life is over. Like I've healed from that. I've moved forward from that. Like, I mean, and like I said in the beginning, time heals, right? So in the
Hmm.
beginning, you might have, you're working through those things. But once you're kind of like past that point, you're healing, you're healed, from that trauma, then it's a memory, right? That's all it is. It's a memory.
Amazing. Wow. So, where do you see your industry, like your Florida property management company and Casella Insurance Solution? Where do you find that industry's heading in the next 5 to 10 years, and what challenges or opportunities do you foresee?
I mean, right now we're in a big challenge. There's been a decline in my real estate property management company because I focus on the vacation rental space. So that's why I'm working on transitioning and pivoting. I'll be going into being my own investor, buying my own properties and creating affordable housing. So I'm going to be
Wow.
focusing on the multiplex space, creating that for families, working families, single parents. Um, and just constantly, I just like, I create jobs as well. So that's my focus, is helping people be able to support themselves and then live in a healthy, affordable environment. So that's what I'll be doing with that. And my insurance company agency, excuse me, I do all lines, but I'd like to hire assisting agents who are going to do like each one focus on certain things like health, and one can do like, they can do health and accident with Medicare and private sector. And, I enjoy more of the life and retirement planning with the business insurance, and then somebody else could do like the auto and home and, something like that. So it's just really expanding my operations for my agency, while the insurance, the real estate property management company is going to pivot a little bit until the economy, gets where it needs to go, and then people start traveling again. But right now, we need jobs and we need housing.
Well, everyone, Jackie is in Florida, so anybody who wants to deal with Florida property, you can contact her, Elevate Stellar Reality. Also,
Yes,
she's the
sir.
CEO and president of mentioned Casella Insurance Solutions. And anybody out there who's interested in attending a university for vocal performance can go to Millersville.
Yes, Millersville University.
So, as we wrap up our conversation, what are the key takeaways or insights you like our listeners to remember from our discussion today?
Just that, no matter what happens in your life, you need to move forward and you can't stay stuck. So, because you're doing that, you're only living in the past. So you have to see your future, and in order to see your future, you have to heal and you have to find yourself. So that's basically the biggest takeaway that somebody should get from me, and that you know you have to live your purpose. Everybody has a purpose, so your purpose is found in your passion.
Wow, that's amazing. And if the light touches me a little bit more, I'm going to look like the Phantom of the Opera. So maybe that's God's sign saying, this is the performance you should do. Um,
Absolutely.
Before we say goodbye, do you have any advice or words of wisdom you'd like to share with our audience, especially those aspiring to get into maybe property management or insurance or vocal performance?
I mean, it's really just being self-made, like whether it's music, real estate, insurance, any type of other business, it's really just being self-made, and like I said, finding where your passion is. And it's all just a sense of being an entrepreneur, really. It's all the same kind of thing. So, it's going to require you to work on your own skills, talents, and abilities. It's going to require you to perfect them and to gain knowledge and to become an expert, because that's how I became an expert in three fields, is because I gained that knowledge to do so, whether it was through experience or through a degree, things like that. So that's really where it is.
This is great. So, for our listeners who want to learn more about your work or connect with you, where can they find you online or stay updated on your latest endeavors?
Well, they can just Google me, to be honest, Jacquie Cassella, Jacqueline Marie Casella. I pop up like right away. They'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I have obviously a few business pages. I have, two business pages everywhere, for both of my companies. I'll have my personal branding. I have my artist page that's going to be launched. I'll be sharing that with you as well. Like I haven't utilized in a very long time. So they'll be able to find me everywhere because I'm connected to, like, I make sure that my name is connected to all my pages.
That is awesome. I want to express my sincere gratitude for you joining us today. Is there anything you'd like to add and any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we conclude?
No, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really do truly appreciate it. And I look forward to talking with you again and being connected to your other podcast friends.
Yes, and you're very welcome. But if you just wait a moment and we'll talk about that. Everyone, we're going to end this. I don't know whether I want to call this an episode or a powerful TED Talks audiobook that doesn't exist.
Exactly. Well, it does now.
And God bless you. This is amazing.
Thank
Everyone,
you.
Jacquie Cassella out.
Bye.